the albino twins. These albino twins set the interwebs on fire when this pic was released among a collection of others by Swiss photographer Vinicius Terranova. They're undeniably adorable with the uncanny resemblance to ancient Greek gods. But who are they? They're Mara and Lara Bawar, living with their parents in Brazil, even though they're originally from Guinea-Bissau in West Africa. As already mentioned, they have albinism, a more well-known condition compared to most that we've looked at in this video. As albinos, they lack pigmentation in their skin, eyes, and hair. As you can see, this turned out to be a blessing in disguise, as the twins together with their older sister, Sheila, are a sight to behold. What's more, they've landed major modeling deals with big brands such as Bazaar Kids and Nike, and they love their skin. In past interviews, they've termed albinism as pretty and wanted to use it as a medium in the modeling world to represent not just other albinos, but also other women. Those are some pretty impressive affirmations from such young people. What can we say? May the universe grant their wishes. +1. Just like Mohammed, Deepak suffered a fair share of stigma due to his unprecedented development. But unlike Mohammed, his case was more shocking. Instead of the usual 4 limbs, he had 8, with the other extra 4 sticking right out of his chest. These extra body parts were said to be an undeveloped twin and were problematic to the mother before she gave birth to Deepak. She is said to have been through frequent bouts of pain, and when she finally gave birth, she found out what the problem had been all along. It wasn't possible to know of such an abnormality before her due date because of the rather poor healthcare services in the Indian region of Bihar. And so, the 8-limbed Deepak was born much to the astonishment of everyone. Some viewed him as the Hindu goddess Lakshmi and even brought him offerings. Others saw him as some kind of monster who might later consume his parents. But thanks to charitable doctors, the boy didn't have to put up with all the extra limbs. The parasitic twin was removed after scans confirmed that the two didn't share any vital. Fu Wengui. Fu Wengui from Beijing, China is yet another example that extra body parts can be a bit of a problem. Instead of the usual 7 vertebrae that most people have on their necks, Fu had 10 of them. This made him appear taller, albeit disproportionately, as pictured here with his father, Fu Genyu. But most unfortunate is the physical pain that comes with those extra bones. According to his father, the additional 3 vertebrae exerted more pressure on the nerves of his neck, which made walking a grueling task for the boy. According to medical experts, Wengui had a condition called congenital scoliosis that arises when the spinal cord fails to form properly. The condition develops early on in the first 6 or so weeks after conception. The last time he was in the limelight, Fu Wengui was gearing up for surgery to reduce his neck under the sponsorship of a Beijing-based charity. This was back in 2014. Nothing much has been heard about him since then. We just hope the operation was a success. Pan Zianheng. Pan Zianheng has a genetic skin disease known as ichthyosis, which translates to fish in Greek. His entire skin from head to toe is dry, scaly, and always itchy. When it is too dry, it cracks, which can further complicate the boy's life as this opens an avenue for other infections. And the pain the boy goes through is unbearable. He's unable to sleep peacefully at night and has to limit the movement of both his arms and legs to have a less painful experience. And the worst part is, there's no cure yet. So Pan will have to contend living with this condition, despite all the discomfort he'll have to face. Locals in Unveiling, China, where he lives, have nicknamed him the Fish Boy, which, let's say, doesn't really help the situation. To at least tone down the itchiness and pain, ichthyosis patients must keep their skin moisturized at all times. Moisturizers, oils, and creams are especially helpful with this. Milagros Serum. Stories of mermaids are commonplace in a lot of cultures around the world. The big issue is whether these mythical creatures are real or false. Milagros Serum was a close enough representation of the mermaids, only that she wasn't one and didn't live in water. She was born with sirenomelia, or mermaid syndrome, which means her legs were fused. The condition may be accompanied by other health problems like kidney and gastrointestinal issues. Typically, kids born with mermaid syndrome die within a few hours of being born, but that wasn't the case for Milagros. She survived long enough for doctors to separate her legs and carry out extensive reconstructive surgery on her lower body. She even managed to walk, something that was a big deal considering her condition. She survived for 15 years before succumbing to kidney complications. Tessa Evans. Rare as it is, it's not entirely impossible to find organs that fail to develop at the time of birth. A case in point is Tessa Evans. She was born with an extremely rare condition known as congenital arrhythmia, which means she lacks sinus cavities and a sense of smell. And the space that should be occupied by a nose is covered with just a patch of skin. This rare condition is said to occur about once in every 197 million births, and there have been at least 46 reported cases worldwide. So how does this girl go about her normal life? At birth, doctors fitted her with a tube that has been pivotal to her survival, but the quest to address her condition hasn't stopped at that. She's the first person to be fitted with a nasal implant, which is aimed to help her grow a nose. This process is still ongoing with an assortment of other procedures, such as an implant through her hairline. The implant is to be replaced as Mohammed Kaleem. Mohammed Kaleem was born sometime back in eastern India. What was supposed to be a joyous event later turned to a nightmare for both the boy and his parents. Unlike other toddlers, Mohammed had one problem. He suffered from macrodactyly, or local gigantism. This rare condition made his hands grow way faster than the rest of his body, and it wasn't long before this became a problem. By 8 years old, the hands were too big for him, rendering simple activities like dressing up, eating, and bathing impossible to do so unless someone stepped in. And that's not all. Almost all local schools declined to take him in, saying he scared other kids. At home, the family was taunted and shunned by villagers who attributed this rare medical condition to a curse on Muhammad's parents for a supposed past transgression. They even labeled the boy Devil's Child. It was devastating, to say the least. But luckily for the boy, help came calling towards the end of 2014. Select Indian doctors took up the initiative to work on liberating him from his misfortunes. So he underwent an operation on one of his hands, with the God-sent doctors aiming to reduce both the growth plates and the size of his fingers. Charlotte Garside. Well, we said earlier that kids are, in some ways, just a smaller version of regular people. But for Charlotte Garside, she was way smaller than a normal kid would be. According to experts, a newborn baby should weigh anywhere from 5 to 8 pounds under normal circumstances. But for Charlotte, she was rather tiny, weighing just 2 pounds at birth. Naturally, this was cause for alarm for both doctors and her parents, and she had to spend the first 13 weeks of her life under the care of medical staff. Data from past such cases painted a rather gloomy picture of this girl, with doctors chipping in that she might not be able to last past her first birthday. This is common among patients of primordial dwarfism, a rare genetic disorder Charlotte was suffering from. Most people with this condition die early on in their lives from health complications due to their tiny builds. But not for our little girl. She still holds on, albeit with her brain being a bit less developed for her age. But hey, it's still incredible that she's come this far. Mana Maget. Twins come about when the embryo splits into two, and each one of them develops to form a distinct fetus. But what happens when the split isn't successful? The case of Mana Maget, an Egyptian toddler, can be used to explain this better. The girl got the bad side of the process, ending up with an extra head attached to hers instead of a separate twin. The head was more of a parasitic toddler arising from a condition called craniopagus parasiticus. This extra head had a bit of life as it could blink and move the mouth. It had even been given a name, Islam. But to allow Mana a normal life, the head had to go ASAP. So doctors got down to work on a 13-hour surgery that saw the undeveloped twin removed. This proved a success, even though the little girl suffered regular infections for the 2 years she was alive. Sadly, she later succumbed to a brain infection.